So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming this morning, for the dedication for the Little Pond Conservation Riverwalk Trail. There's many people that we'd like to thank for this, and you're going to be hearing from many speakers this morning. But outside of the speakers, I've noticed some other folks in the crowd. Please give a hand for our chair of the select board, Bob Muscali. And Jack Richardson, our new select board member, welcome. So we have some featured guests come up here today to say a couple of words. And I'd like to have a kind welcome from them also. So first we'd like to start off, let's welcome up Massachusetts State Representative Dave Vieira.
Thanks, Peter. Moving on up, good idea, right here in the shade. Many of you know when I give a speech as a state rep, I say, I'm Dave Vieira, and I'm from T-Ticket. Well, welcome to T-Ticket. We're at the far edge of T-Ticket, right? Because we have the stream here that sort of sets the boundary of our villages with the set of lights up here on Route 28. But we're in an area that for many years, I watched this happen as the town moderator, being at town meeting as we were looking at the future of this land and making purchase and looking at dealing with affordable housing issues. But the piece of land directly behind us that the 300 Committee and the Falmouth DPW have done so much to reclaim was a neglected piece of land. It was neglected in that trucks and trucks of garbage and debris and cement from the old industrial works was moved. But it was also an area where members of our community, many from T-Ticket, that were neglected and were living in these woods. And I want to take a moment to thank the nonprofit organizations, Falmouth Human Services, Falmouth Housing Corporation, Belonging to Each Other, the police department, and those that have worked with the individuals that were on this land and neglected to try to find them a place to go and a better life. And I can hear behind me there's an osprey that's taken to a post and made this a new home as well. Many times when I come to these, I have played a role in the state involvement and all of that, and mostly the role here was as town moderator, overseeing the legislative process, which took many steps to get us to today. But we're here today to sort of open up the land, to open up access, and to sort of reimagine what the future might be. There's a stream that the Conservation Department has had jurisdiction over for a number of years, and that ends in a very special spot for me. That ends at T-Ticket Park, which was my backyard growing up. And so as we look at the future of what we're doing here in this project, I'd like us to continue to look at that corridor all the way behind the old Falmouth Mall, now Falmouth Crossing, and bring back that waterway just like we did the Coonamessett River and the Quashnet River. Because I remember as a young kid, we had a reservoir that we used to pump water out to water the miniature golf and the pitch and putt, and fish would jump in there in the spring. And we're like, what was that? And we actually had fish coming up the river, spawning in this little reservoir that we pumped the water out after having to get through all of those shopping carts from Shaw's, and but it was before Walmart, right, to make it up to that spot. And so perhaps with some Chapter 90 money, Peter, we can deal with the culvert. Has always been an issue there on Mara Vesta, right, that the fish would run through to get back up there, and continue to take the project that we're here to celebrate today and bring it all the way from here to T-Ticket Park. So congratulations to everyone involved. Thank you, and let's take it to the next level.
Let's welcome up our select board member, Doug Brown.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to be here on behalf of the board today. Another step forward with our outdoor experience in Falmouth. It's like, I see Leonard and Patty, 300 committee people here. I'm sure there's plenty more. we should call them the 3,000 committee now. I think there are just about 3,000 acres of land that we can enjoy here in Falmouth, and as well as all the town amenities that the town-sponsored projects like this. We're so lucky here to have all these different opportunities to go out and take a walk. I love it. I'm so proud of our town to be always taking advantage of these opportunities, making more places for people to enjoy outdoors. Not too many towns have that kind of stuff that they can be proud of, so pretty thankful for that. I don't have a lot of speech here. I offered to speak because they asked me to. I just, it's a real simple thing. Every time you have a project in Falmouth, an opportunity, people come together and make it happen. It's always impressive. I love this town. It never ceases to amaze me. So thank you.
Let's welcome up our Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Peter Johnson-Staub.
Good morning, thank you. Well, Doug sort of hit on some of the points that I wanted to emphasize. First, just to start, no major project like this happens without a lot of individuals and departments and agencies involved. I do want to acknowledge, on behalf of the Town Manager's Office, the predecessors in our office and the Select Board members who helped to shepherd this through town meeting. And the main point that I want to make is that undeveloped land is just an incredibly precious resource, and of course it gets more precious every year. And it's so important that a community get it right when it has an opportunity to take control of a significant piece of land like this. And as someone who had no role in the process whatsoever, I just want to say I'm very proud to be associated with this community because you really got it right. There's a exemplary high-density affordable housing occupying a small portion of the land, with the lion's share of the remainder protected for conservation. And I think that's a wonderful use of the property for generations to come. So congratulations to all who were involved in that decision-making process. I had very little role in this whole project, but one tiny little piece of it that I did participate in is one of those sort of invisible things that doesn't get a lot of attention and doesn't need to necessarily. But I want to call out the Falmouth Housing Corporation, because in order to make this land restoration and invasive removal and public access possible, there was this annoying little bit of legalese that had to be taken care of, because the property boundaries were not drawn up in a way that facilitated the best, lowest impact access to the conservation property. And it took more work than you might think it should. And to the credit of the Falmouth Housing Corporation, their community partners, they could have just put up their hands and said, look, not my problem. We're here for housing. This isn't our mission. Go around us. But they didn't, and they invested significant time to work out the access, the legal arrangements for the access, so that this project could be done in the lowest impact, best way for the community. So I want to acknowledge Falmouth Housing Corporation for that. And with that, I want to introduce the next speaker, who has been much more hands-on on this project and is intimately familiar with all of the different partners that it took to bring this forward, and that is Mark Kaspersick of our Conservation Office.
Thank you all for coming today. I know it's a hot one, so I'll try to be brief, but I do have, my main goal is I have two take-home messages here today that I want you to remember, all right? First one, that Dave Viera has so explicitly stated, that the Little Pond Conservation was formerly a construction site. with buildings and debris. And as he said, it was pretty bad. The second point is this project epitomizes what a long, ripe history of perseverance can accomplish through local grassroots involvement. So this was a collaboration on many fronts by organizations, committees, the town, and incredible volunteer participation that we have in Falmouth. So from the many people in the spotlight that you see at town meeting to the ones behind the scenes you don't see. So my goal is to thank the many people that have helped us reach this point. So T-Ticket Civic Association for the tremendous support from the board and its members to preserve the area for the public. For that, we thank Cheryl Williams, Paul Afsa, Mary Little. The Save Little Pond Group, who fought to oppose what was originally a 168-unit housing development that would impact the sensitive area. We thank Ed Jalowick and many of the other people that were involved. The 300 Committee teamed up with the Conservation Department to obtain CPC support in phases for this area. And they also assisted with the cleanup of invasive plants and trash. So I'd really like to thank Margaret Russell and Leonard Johnson, who are key contributors in the beginning of this project. Also, their staff, Jessica Rittenauer, Will Poirier, former Alex Zolo, and TerraCorps members Grace and Liam. For the Community Preservation Committee for their belief and support in the restoration over all these many years. Barb Schneider was a major advocate at town meeting for this project. I'm sure many of you remember, as was Peter Clark. We also thank Russ Robbins and Sandra Cooney for continuing that effort. The Falmouth Housing Corporation granted access to the property they lease, which is not an easy process, as Peter Johnson-Staub mentioned. We really thank Linda Clark and Linda Kane. For Human Services for their quick responses in helping the homeless relocate and provide them with options where to live. We thank Susie Hopman and especially Mark Abbott for all the many phone calls we had together. The Police Department, in coordination with Human Services for backup support and their social services. Lieutenant Simino, Sergeant Ferrer, Stephanie Doherty, and Molly Marshall. Litter Free Falmouth, who graciously scheduled numerous much-needed cleanups on the property and lugging of concrete, abandoned tents, debris with wheelbarrows. We thank Alan Robinson, Pamela Rothstein, and the many volunteers that participated. Now DPW, I know it's been mentioned how much they've helped, but you don't realize the tens of thousands of dollars they have saved the town in doing what they did. This involved removing mounds of buried concrete, metal, and debris. That's the way it was in the past. They would have piles of concrete, metal, trash, and just bury them, and they were all over the place. 90% of those are gone. Truckloads of trash in camps. After one cleanup event, there was 6 truckloads full of trash. Invasive vegetation, cutting and disposal. Tearing out the old chain link fence impoundment lot. I think a lot of you remember that. Used to be the police impoundment lot years ago. Lighting and telephone pole takedowns, gates and fencing pulled out. Dumping removals from the entrance to the site and in the site. So there's a long list here, and I'm not going to remember all of them, but of course we thank Peter McConerty and the crew coordination through Jim Grady and Mike Souza. And the hard-working DPW crew that was so critical. Scott Limitanen, Josh Clark, Jamie Woodward, Christian Evans, Matt Resendez, Doug Potter, Dan Fenton, Calvin Bowen, and many others. Then Jeremiah Pearson and Martin Potter for the locust cutting. So when you go down the trail and you see some of those seats, that was their doing. Also, Jim McLaughlin in the engineering department and their staff's help through Dylan McCarthy, Nick Croft, and Scott Schluter. All right, the Conservation Commission, who recognized the importance of preserving Little Pond frontage and the rare Atlantic white cedar swamp and vernal pools. We thank Russ Robbins and the many, many commission members over the year. Also, our staff, Jen Lincoln, Alyssa Bergeron, Fallon Queenie, Lori Brown, who set up a lot of this stuff for us, and Tucker Nugent. All right, and last, the contractors that made this happen. Horsley and Witten were the original design people here, and they did for the engineering too, and they still are. Amy Ball, Brian Kutcher, and Mike Easler. I want to thank Lewis Tree Service for their 3 years of invasive plant control. That would be Dave O'Brien, who headed that project up. And finally, Yardworks, who put in the ADA path, parking, native plant restoration, and will be doing maintenance for the next year. We thank Kevin Fox, Angie DeMello, Jerry, Tony, and Raphael, who are all here. Very hard workers. And to all the others that I left off that contributed to this newest downtown conservation area, I thank you for making this a community effort. Thank you.
Let's welcome up the Executive Director of the 300 Committee, Jessica Rittenauer.
I was going to say good morning. I think it's still morning, right? Thank you. It's great to see everybody here. I am tremendously grateful that the town of Falmouth took this project on in partnership. I wanted to start by sharing a recollection from 2006. Save Little Pond signs were pretty much in all areas of Falmouth. The 168 unit proposal that Mark Kaspersik mentioned was under review by the zoning board and was permitted and then appealed. But the Save Little Pond effort that Cheryl Williams, Mary Little, Bob Delapi, Paul Afsa, Ed Jelowick, that created an unbelievable force of energy and momentum for Falmouth. What happened was in the appeal process, the developer decided that the project was quote unquote uneconomic and he walked away from the deal. That put this 21-acre property on the market. Right during the time frame, the town had recently adopted the Community Preservation Act. We had a fairly new source of money that we could use for land acquisition. The charge from the selectmen at the time, now it's select board, but Board of Selectmen, Kevin Murphy as chair, there was a charge to the community. Work together. We want to see open space, recreation, affordable housing. We want to see these groups collaborate. The town created a working group to identify a property where we could do open space and housing and recreation. So at the time when this came on the market, the town was already underway trying to locate a site where we could do housing and open space restoration. So the opportunity came. Leonard was the president of the 300 committee at the time. Margaret Russell was the administrator. The deal was negotiated, the 300 committee, with Bob Pacheco and the town of Falmouth, of course. Bob Pacheco, as owner, agreed to sell the land for $3 million. And the town meeting, all of the support was overwhelming. I think there's excitement with acquisition. The vision here, we knew the community was purchasing a site that needed a tremendous amount of restoration. There were buildings that needed to be cleared away, hazardous materials discovered. So the initial couple of years of site work really was the beginning of the reclamation of this site. I really want to focus today on the role that the town of Falmouth played in seeing this project through. Once Mark Kaspersik got a hold of this, the momentum really came on. So thank you, Mark. Like I said, there was a whole team of people working on planning and implementation, but when it comes to managing a project on the ground and starting to see results of removing invasives, plantings. We wanted to create a public access area that was accessible. So we have accessible trails, we have restored natural areas. The housing component, credit goes to the town, the select board, Falmouth Housing Corporation, who came through. Several of their board members are here today. Maybe give a wave. Linda Clark, Frank Duffy. I'm on Eric Turkington. Frank, I see Frank Garr over here somewhere, one of our additional board members. But the 40 units are fully occupied. They've been fully occupied since 2020. I'm looking at Linda Clark to get confirmation on that. Much needed housing, all affordable. It's on the town sewer. That was going on in the background with this as well. The degraded Little Pond was the key issue that Save Little Pond was fighting for. The Falmouth community was able to extend the sewer line. That project was in the works. By the time this development came forward, we were ready to connect. So we have fully connected all of the units to the wastewater system. So in terms of just key thoughts that come from a project like this: momentum, commitment, determination, perseverance. We have now a publicly accessible, restored conservation area with affordable housing for the people of Falmouth. This was a tremendous vision that town meeting wanted to see happen when they purchased this land as a community back in 2010. And through the hard work of the whole team of people, DPW, conservation, all the project partners, now we have that vision coming to life, and I think we have a tremendous asset here, and thanks all for supporting it.
Please welcome up Chair of the Community Preservation Committee, Sandy Cuny.
I don't know, Jessica just said everything that I was going to say. So I'm going to tell you that this land was always used because this was my playground as a child. I lived on Little Pond. We used to walk down Lucerne Ave, cut through the Nitchie property, which we were friends with, and this was our playground. And we had boards that went through the wetlands over here to get us to the other side to play on the big sand hills. So it was quite amazing. The one who should really be up here is Barb Schneider. She was the chairman of the CPC at the time when this whole process was going through. And yes, it was back in 2010 that we purchased the property. It was in 2013 that the CPC hired the Horsley Witten group. And we have a master plan. There's 45 pages here that kind of refreshed my memory of everything that we were doing back then. The parcel was subdivided right away, so it was 11 acres for community housing and the 9.59 for conservation. Conservation restriction was put on it right away so that the community would know that this whole parcel of land was under the Conservation Commission. So thank you, Mark. It was a 300 committee, community preservation, working together to make this happen. And they used my word perseverance because, yes, there was difficulty. Yes, there were delays. But here we are in 2025 celebrating success. So thank you, everyone.
From T-Ticket Civil Association, member and of the 300 Committee Land Steward for the Little Pond Conservation Area, Ed Jalowick.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here, celebrating this community achievement. So much has already been said, but I think I want to emphasize something that a few folks have mentioned. Linda Clark and the Falmouth Housing Corp., when they started to develop their concept of what would go on this site, they met many times with people like myself from the neighborhood and the T-Ticket Civic Association. What would the neighbors like to see? The outreach was outstanding. So many of the directors, and I see Mary Little, Paul Afsa, Bob Galapi, we would meet with Linda and her crew and talk about it, and they made the project work that the neighborhood could accept and be happy with. There's 70 bedrooms in there for people that needed better housing. And if I remember right, Linda, I think over 90% of the initial residents came from Falmouth, from substandard housing or no housing at all. I mean, outstanding, to see that. How did this happen? People mentioned Save Little Pond. And a whole bunch of years ago, back about, 2006, 7, and 8, a developer wanted to put condominiums in here. 168 units, over 300 bedrooms, served by a denitrifying system that would have been in the southwest corner of the property. So where there's a deep sand pit, that would have been brought up to the level of the next street with thousands and thousands of tons of sand, a iffy technology, especially at that time. And that was grounds for a lawsuit that I personally filed as an abutter to the property. But I couldn't do that without T-Ticket Civic, with members of community organizations all over, and ordinary citizens. People have mentioned how great it is to see Falmouth's spirit. People gave $5, $50, $100, $500. Some people gave multiple times, and we probably spent $40,000 to $50,000 fighting this after ZBA approval. And we wore them down, the economy wore them down, the complexity of the site wore them down, so we were able to protect and save Little Pond, save that very rare habitat that's, don't try to go there this time of year, the ticks will take you away. But it's beautiful in there, it's serene. I go there in the depth of winter and listen to the snowfall and listen to the wildlife. I feel like I'm in a church when I'm there. It was worth preserving. It would have been destroyed with the proximity of all of those residences. It's safe forever, thanks to the effort of the citizens of Falmouth who rallied behind it, the civic associations, T-Ticket, Falmouth Heights Mira Vista Association, donating time and volunteers to help in the fight, and here we are today. Thank the Lord. If anybody wants to see what could have been, I have a nice big map of showing the development that was planned. 5 buildings scattered throughout the entire 20 acres. Just incredible. Well done, Falmouth. I'm so proud to be part of this community and part of this effort. Thank you so much.
So I noticed that this list actually has me as a speaker. So I didn't plan to speak, but I'm going to take this time to have the opportunity to say a few words. So I'm a city boy. I came from Quincy. I lived in Quincy my life till about age 30. Then I moved down to Pembroke, and I started to live the suburban life. And then I started working for the town of Falmouth, and I started working with Falmouth, and I moved to Falmouth in 2017. And I will say I've never come across a group of people that are so dedicated in this town, with the associations, with the committees, with the people that work together, and the perseverance that people put together to work in this town to make projects like this happen. I just want to say thank you to the town, thank you to everyone's here today, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing these. This is the second one we did in a month. There will be more, and I'm sure I'm going to be seeing the same faces at these committees. And I personally appreciate working with all of you and the hard work that you put in to get these projects rolling. It's a lot of work. As everyone had said, 2010, 15 years ago, this was a flat site, and we were removing concrete and buildings and vehicles and other things out of this site. So what a town can do is just set your mind to it. It can be done. So thank you very much. I also want to take this time to say that this is the end of our ceremony, but it's not over. Please, this was scheduled just in time as a late morning ceremony, so please stick around. We're going to have a little bit of music. Go up, have a hot dog, grab a soda, grab a bag of chips, and enjoy the partnerships and friends and have some conversations with everybody. And I'll see you on the other side of this microphone. Thank you.